keeping you up to speed on all your Colorado teams. It's time for Coffee Break.
Happy Victory Monday, everybody. And before we get into the roller coaster of emotions that was last night, I think we all in Broncos country can collectively take a nice exhale, because the Broncos escaped what appeared for about a quarter and a half to 2 quarters of football to be a pretty significant upset scare that would have totally derailed a lot of momentum that they had going, but they didn't. And I'm sure the one person here in the metro area who's going to tell you otherwise is sitting to my left, and that is James Merilatt. James, how are you?
I'm great. Look, a win's a win. I'm always happy with the win. That doesn't mean we can't look at the game and come away with some things that are concerns. And I wrote it today at denversports.com. A win's a win. It's great. But we still don't know anything about this team. We don't know if they're any good.
I disagree.
The 9 wins have been 39-81. The combined record.
And I just, ever since you rolled that stat out a couple weeks ago, I've just known this is going to be a recurring thing. Before we get into last night's game, though, because I have a lot that I want to get into for last night's game. There was a pretty cool event that happened Saturday before the Broncos game. And
yes,
Travis Hunter, the heavy favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, officially became the first Buff to win the award since the late, great Rashaan Salam. And it was really kind of an exclamation point in the coolest way possible to an exciting, couple of years here with Travis Hunter. You are a Buff alum, longtime Buffs fan, and I'm curious to know what that moment was like for you.
It was really cool. I remember where I was the night Rashaan Salam won it. I'll always remember sitting there at my mom and dad's house watching this one, and everybody cheering and going crazy when when his name was announced. We figured it would be, but you never know, right?
It's still something when it happens.
And it was a relatively close race.
Closer than a lot of people thought. So, I think Genty was down like a couple hundred votes.
Yeah. So, it was really cool. And then, maybe this is the old guy in me, but, I watch these guys now, and it just made me proud as a Buff to watch him get up there and be so composed and give such a heartfelt, meaningful speech, and he wasn't reading it. I'm just like, man, I don't think I could do that at 51, let alone at 21 or whatever age he is. So I was just very impressed. It was a really cool moment. Happy to be a Buff, and it's just another example of how far this program has come 100%. In 2 years. We talk about it all the time, but it's remarkable that they're at this point.
No, for me, and I'm not a Buffs alum. I'm a Buffs fan as much as like someone in the state of Colorado who doesn't have an affiliation to there. Just kind of
as everyone here should be. You should be a fan of the state.
Yeah,
the biggest school in the state.
Yeah, well, yeah. Again, I think sometimes that gets a little. In this case, I think it's different than in other states. But yeah, so I'm a Buffs fan. I'm along for the ride. I say that because there's people in Michigan. I went to Michigan State that like are Michigan State fans, but if Michigan State's out, they root for Michigan because it's good for the state. Or I'm not one of those people.
I'm with you on that.
If you have no allegiance to either one, I think it's fair to just kind of like play them all. Like I said, that's kind of where my allegiances lie. And it was even cool for me. It was one of those moments of like taking a step back and like, wow, this is the University of Colorado, like on the biggest stage, getting the most coveted award in college football. And you're right. His speech I thought was great. There was just like these perfect moments of levity and humor that were mixed in with some, you could tell things were genuine and heartfelt, and just kind of encapsulated who Travis Hunter is as a person, who just seems to be like one of the most genuine, kind-hearted, bright young people, that we have here in the state. And it was just so cool to see. Again, you mentioned that, Prime was there and Shador was there and Lil Wayne is sitting right there in the front row, man. And the little shout out
that was so Buffs. That was so what that program has become.
Yeah. And it's just like, Travis Hunter, again, in just his own lovable, likable way, admits that he didn't even know who Lil Wayne was. It's like, you've never heard of Lil Wayne?
He didn't listen. He said he didn't listen to music or doesn't listen to music. Yeah, he doesn't listen
to music, which again, it's like, if anybody else says that, it's like, okay, you're weird. But when Travis Hunter says, you're like, I get it. Like, he's just, he's the guy that wears like Pikachu pajamas and streams and goes fishing.
Yeah. The one of the cool parts about it is you always think the Heisman's going to be, it's Alabama, it's Ohio State, it's those other schools. The analogy I had is it's kind of like when somebody's running for president, they always seem like they're from Texas,
Yep.
Florida, Ohio,
Yeah.
the big states. It would be like if somebody from Colorado won the
right
presidential election.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'd be like, even if you didn't vote for me, you're like, it's still cool. He's from Colorado. It's the first time that would have ever happened. That was kind of the analogy I had. But yeah, I thought he did great. It was just the right amounts of humor and seriousness. And he got a little teared up when he was, a lot teared up when he was talking about his dad, which was cool. So no, it was just made for a really fun Saturday night.
I knew it was going to happen. And yet still, when I saw the announcement live and then it happened and, all of that, there was still, even for someone like me, a moment of like, man, this is just cool. And so that feeling got me down some other thought trains over the weekend. And I wanted to run them by you. Is the first one being, is Travis Hunter the greatest individual player to ever wear the black and gold?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Rashawn won it. When Rashawn won it, and this is going to sound like I'm taking away from him, and I'm not. It was because he had 2,000 yards, and back then, that was the milestone. If you hit it, you were automatic. I don't even know that Rashawn wasn't the best player on that team. He wasn't the best player on that offense. Cordell Stewart was.
Sure.
Michael Westbrook was maybe the second best player. So I think he's better than Rashawn, and that's the only other Heisman winner. Darian Hagan's still the greatest player I've ever seen up there. He was amazing. Cordell's on that list. But yeah, Shadur's on that list.
He is.
How he finished 8th is beyond me.
Don't even get me started on the fact that he wins the upperclassman Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award for the best upperclassman quarterback, and then you invite 2 other upperclassman quarterbacks to the Heisman ceremony as finalists who didn't win the award for best upper.
Yeah,
just
it was weird. But no, I think he's the greatest. I think he's the greatest Buff of all time.
I agree with you, and I had a thought that I think would be something really cool. That the program should do. But I would be curious as an alum and as a fan of what you thought about it. And I think it is that I think the Buffs need to not retire the number 12, because you can't really retire numbers in college football. There's just so many kids and so many things. But I think the number 12 should become the earned, not given number at CU, the way number 7 is at LSU.
Sure.
Syracuse does it, I think, with Floyd Little's number 44.
Yep.
And other schools around the country at number 1, right? A lot of schools do it with the number 1. Like, hey, if you're on the field wearing number 7 at LSU, it's because you were chosen by your teammates and your coaches to wear that number. It's like it signifies like a special, significant thing as one of the better players on the team. I think the Buffs should do that with Travis Hunter's number going forward because of how insane his tenure here was and the things he was able to do.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be really cool. They don't have a tradition like that.
That was part. My other question is, do they already do that?
And they may have one that the linebackers all know about or something, but it's not anything that's public knowledge.
No, I didn't go to LSU, but I know that when Leonard Fournette trots out or Derek Stingley Jr. trots out in number 7, it's like, oh, that's because he's the
Don't they have one with Matt Mock too? Wasn't he like 18? I feel like they have
something.
I think they have a couple of them.
I don't know, but I know it's been retired for it started with somebody and then it's passed down. Like I said, I think Syracuse does it. I know LSU does it with the number 7, and other programs number 1 and things.
I think that'd be very cool.
Signifies like your impact player.
I think that's a great idea. I think that would be fantastic. I'm trying to think. Have they had a 19 in a while? I mean, that was Rashawn's number.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, there's probably one on the roster right now, and I just didn't notice it and didn't think about it. But I think that would be a very cool way to honor the fact that he's probably the greatest player in CU history. Now, I mentioned all offensive guys.
Yeah.
You go to the other side of the ball, you got Alfred and Canavis McGee and Deion Figures won the Jim Thorpe Award, and Chris Hudson. They've had a lot of great players on that side too. The linebackers, Chad Brown, Ted Johnson. But yeah, now he's probably the best offensive player in school history.
Yeah.
And he's probably the best defensive player in school history.
Yep.
He's got to be at the top of the list.
And I know that there may be some who said, like, because you mentioned it, there may be some who say, well, you didn't do that for Salam, so why would you? And I'm just not one of those people that says because you didn't do it for something at some point, you shouldn't ever do it going forward. Like, if that was the case, no one would ever correct mistakes or oversights or evolve or change in any way.
Well, you could do it for both of them now.
Sure. Yeah, if you wanted to. I mean, and again, it's like, these things are fluid and you have to, the number 18 was retired for the Broncos until 18 came through the door.
Yeah.
And suddenly we made it work and they had that awkward dual representation on the stadium. But I don't know. I just think that the degree of difficulty that it takes to win a Heisman Trophy, especially again, when when you're fighting against the award going to like the best quarterback on, because that's why Dylan Gabriel was there.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel's not one of the 4 best quarterbacks in the country. He's just representing number 1 undefeated Oregon.
Yeah.
And Cam Ward had moments and stuff, but it fell off toward the end. And again, Shedeur statistically was better than him in a lot of ways. And so I just think it would be a really cool way to honor one of the most unique special players in college football this year, and maybe the best and most unique player that will play for CU for the foreseeable future. Who knows when we'll see another kind of player who's able to do it at that level on both sides of the ball consistently for multiple years.
And that's been my argument for why he should win it, is we'll see the kind of year. Every other guy up there had a great season.
Before
we'll see it again
Genty,
next
there
year.
was Derrick Henry. Before Derrick Henry, there was Mark Ingram. Before Mark Ingram,
Correct.
it was And again, the only difference between Genty and the names I just mentioned there is those other guys did it in the SEC or the Power 4, not mostly Mountain West.
Right.
And that's not to take away from, because I'm gonna be honest with you, depending on how the draft board shakes out, if the Broncos were to walk away with a chance to draft Eston Genty maybe in the late first round or whatever it is, second round, with how their running game looks, I'm not opposed to it. So I'm certainly not trying to talk trash.
I'm not
about
either.
Genty.
I'm not either. But there was one guy on that stage who we haven't seen it before, and we may never see it again.
Yeah, because people bring out like, oh, well, Desmond Howard did it, but Desmond Howard was nowhere near as prolific offensively.
No,
as
Dion even played a couple of offensive
Charles
snaps.
Woodson
did, but it was like a novelty.
Champ Bailey did it.
They weren't like every down players on both sides of the ball. It was incredible. He was the right guy to win it. They got it right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care that it was close. It doesn't matter to me. I would like to know 7% of people didn't have him on their ballot at all. What are you watching?
Yeah, they're in cahoots with the same guy. As much as I love this guy, and he kind of had like a cool vote. He was like, Cam Scattaboo got 1 first place vote. And it's like, I want to talk to that guy. I want to know what that guy's ballot process was, that the ASU running back gets the first place vote.
He has to be
over Genty.
He has to write for a Phoenix, the Arizona Republic.
Sundevil.com.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyways, the Broncos game. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was stressed. I was, and I think I had said it to you. I definitely said it to Will Peterson on Friday when he and I did the show together. I said the number one key for me, for the Broncos to take care of business against a team that they're better than on paper, is they have to start fast. They, historically speaking, have been outscored in terms of point differential in the first quarter through the first 14 weeks. And then they really pick it up in the second quarter. I think they're like plus 33 in the second quarter, and then it trails off, and then they kind of finish slow. They start slow, finish slow, pick it up in the middle. The Colts were the exact opposite of that. They started fast and finished fast, and then was just bad in the middle. And I was like, I don't like how that puzzle fits together. And so they need to start fast. And they did everything but. It was painful to watch offensively in the beginning, and even defensively. Anthony Richardson, who, a lot of us have kind of justifiably so kind of poo-pooed a little bit, and his accuracy is insanely bad. He's like Tim Tebow, vibes in certain ways. He sliced and diced down the field on that first drive for like 70 yards.
Yeah, that was as good. I mean, he didn't look like that the rest of the day throwing the ball, but he was on fire to start with. But I don't know if the Broncos won the game or the Colts lost it, because there were three moments, right? It was the Jonathan Taylor dropping the ball. First of all, I'm glad it went the way it did, but did anybody see an actual angle where it was definitive that he did? Like, it was right at the goal line.
Well, and they made the review during the commercial break. They made the determination, because they went to break, and I was like, oh no, that's not that. They're not going to overturn that, whatever. And then it came back. It was like, if you're just joining us, this and this and this, it's a touchback. And I was like, whoa,
yeah,
whoa. So yeah, no, I that was clearly the turning point in the game.
But then the Broncos get the drive and go ahead, right? A 15-yard drive. So the Marvin Mims punt return was the second big play. Mm-hmm. That's them making a play, not the other team.
Yeah, and Marvin had a couple.
But then when the Colts are down 17-13, they panic and run that ridiculous trick play. And Nick Bonito takes it the other way, and it's ball game. It was over at that point. It was 3 plays, only one of which really was made by the Broncos.
Here's where I'm just gonna kind of draw a line with you. Your question was, did the Broncos win it or did the Colts lose it? I think inherently both things are always going to be true, because I mean, you could, if you ask that question about the Bills-Lions game, It's like, did the Lions lose it by Dan Campbell, onside kicking with 12 minutes left, or maybe making some unnecessary things? Yes, but the Bills also had to make the plays that corresponded to build a lead in order to win. So I'm gonna say that the Broncos won it, and maybe that's just influenced by the fact that we now have, for the first time since 2016, a winning season here. And I think that they've shown enough body of work since the first month of the season where it felt a little dicey, that they made the plays offensively to make it good enough, even after a slow start and getting a little bit of help from the defense like they have for most of the year.
Yeah, but I mean, they had less than 200 yards of total offense. They were bad on that side of the ball. Bo Nix threw 3 picks. He looked bad for most of the game. I get it. When they had the opportunity, they did strike, right? So, the Jonathan Taylor one's a gift. The Broncos defense was terrible.
And can I just say on that, I don't even understand why players do.
I don't either.
Because here's what I'll say. I think that they think it looks cool that you're like running across and it's so effortless that you're just like, oh, I think it looks stupid.
I agree.
Like if I was trying to make like an impact celebration, give me the Nick Bonito, Michael Jackson grab, or what did they, what was the penalty? An illegal demonstration? Because they don't call it a celebration. It's an illegal demonstration penalty.
He did the Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, that is cool. If you want to run up to the line and then turn around and fall backwards like they do, or do the whatever the tight end for the Bengals was, they did the front Jermaine whatever, they did the front flip, all that stuff. I'm cool with all that, but the dropping the ball in the moment like that, it doesn't look cool. So you get no added benefit there. It has by far the biggest potential risk of any possible celebration you could do for no payoff. I think it's stupid.
It's ridiculous. I can't believe players still do it. Like after it happened 1 or 2 times, wouldn't everybody be like, oh my God, I can't imagine doing that and blowing a touchdown and hurt I just can't believe guys still do it. But that was a gift. The Marvin Mims punt return, Broncos had to make that play.
Yep.
The Nick Bonito touchdown, Nick Bonito had to make that play,
right.
But they did have a 15-yard scoring drive, a 35-yard scoring drive, and a pick 6 or fumble return. That's how they got the 3 touchdowns.
Why is that a fumble return, by the way? It was clearly a pass.
I think they were both slightly backwards passes is what they determined.
But wouldn't a fumble imply that it was mishandled?
I think it's backwards.
Because they said that on the bet. They're like, that's actually being ruled a fumble recovery. And I'm like, in no way is it a fumble. He picked it up and threw it. It's no different
than if you intercepted a pitch.
Yeah.
It would be a fumble return because it was a backwards throw. Silly little technicality. Yeah. But either way, he had to make that play. And look, the Broncos got the ball to 15 after the punt return. They scored.
Yeah.
They got the ball to, I guess, at the 35 after the Pat Surtain interception, which he had to make that play.
Yep.
They kicked the field goal. The Colts are offsides, which is just another bang your head against the wall if you live in Indianapolis. And Denver winds up going down and scoring on the Cortland Sutton touchdown. They made the plays when the opportunities arose. But, man, the rest of the game, they were pretty brutal in a lot of ways. But, hey, they're 9-5. None of us, I think even the guys mixing the Kool-Aid didn't think they'd be 9-5 at this point. And they got a chance on Thursday night to finally check the last box with me. You got to go beat a good team. And I know the Chargers have lost 3 out of 4, but that's a good football team in their place. They have everything in the world to play for. And both teams do. That would be a legit win. And when I'm here next week, I won't have the stat anymore of the record of the teams the Broncos have beaten, because that will answer the question.
I want to ask you on that note, you said, because I agree with you. This team's over and under was 5.5 at the start of the season. So Vegas, who's traditionally speaking pretty on it, as well as a lot of people here locally, let alone the national people who are ignoring it, did not expect the Broncos to be where they're at. So again, I asked you this question about Travis Hunter and the feeling of watching the Heisman. Did you have any kind of feeling once the game was in hand and the clock struck 0, and we know now that the Broncos are going to finish with a winning record for the first time since 2016? Was that relevant or impactful to you in any way? Because I know Sean Payton and a lot of the players got asked about it after the game.
It wasn't to me. I don't care if I'd rather have a winning record than a losing record. When they make the playoffs, when they officially clinch, that will be a big deal to me. Having a winning record, nice, but if you're the 8 seed and you're home on wildcard weekend, Who cares?
Yeah, James, but because I disagree with you.
All you're doing is hurting your
It did
draft
mean
status
it
at
did
that
mean
point.
something to me because I think you're looking at it from the same way we would have looked at it right after 2015, right after the Super Bowl. We've gone through some really dark
I don't care. I don't lower
times,
the bar.
but
No,
James, but what I'm
I'm
saying
not satisfied
is
with this.
the bar's not lower. You're just looking at the glass from a different angle because you now know what it's been like to go through the gulag of Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch and Case Keenum and Joe Flacco and Jeff Driscoll and Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. And
I'm just not convinced the current guy's not going to be on that list at some point. I'm not convinced. He's got.
I am. I'm convinced.
After what you saw yesterday.
Yep. And I'll tell you why. Because
goodness,
he threw 3 interceptions.
He just gets a free pass.
No, it's not a free pass.
He totally does.
Would you like me to tell you why?
Awful yesterday.
Would you like me to tell you why?
130 yards and 3 picks.
Okay. I'll tell you why. He has shown after the first few weeks where it was a little rough. He was the first Broncos quarterback to not throw a touchdown pass in his first 3 starts to start a season. He has continually grown, and he was asked about this 3 interception game after the game. And I actually thought he gave like a pretty deep kind of insightful answer. It kind of got into the psyche of being a quarterback, but I'm sure you could more broadly apply it of just, sitting there thinking to yourself, the first one you go, oh, okay, it was it happens. You're not going to win them all kind of thing. Then the second one, you're like, oof, okay. Did I just make a bad read? Did he make a good play? Then it happens again. And you start to think, is every pass I throw going to get picked off? And just kind of the ability for him to show enough confidence in himself and resiliency to, even though you've thrown 3 picks, you still had to keep throwing to win the game. And he did it. And so my point is, I feel differently about Bo Nix than I do about the previous, murderer's row of Broncos quarterbacks that we've seen since Manning, because I think already just in this 15-game sample size, Bo has shown a greater ability to learn from and grow from setbacks and mistakes. And I have more faith in Sean Payton's system and his connection with Bo that they've developed than I did with Drew Lock and Rich Scangarello or yada, yada going on and back.
Sure.
So I feel better about Bo having a bad game because I think that he's proven that he learns and grows from those. And it's not necessarily just a sign of Groundhog Day to come.
Well, I'm glad he's not Case Keenum. Remember Case Keenum's first year here? He threw a bunch of picks early in the year, and then he just got
3 in like the first game.
He got like super conservative and would just throw check down after check down after check down. Okay, I'll give him credit for not being that kind of player and that kind of quarterback. That said, if he plays like he did yesterday in the wild card game, it's going to be like the 47-7 Bills over the Patriots when Mac Jones went up to Buffalo and got blown out. He
100%.
will get killed.
No, and
I don't want to.
I don't say all that to say like, hey, it's all good. Thumbs up. Thanks for the gumball, Mickey. After having a game like that, he's got to get better. What I'm saying is, I think that they will. I think that he will, and I think that they will.
I think he will too. I just don't know he won't. I mean, Mac Jones went to the playoffs as a rookie.
James, we don't know anything.
Yeah,
we
you do.
Know anything?
You know, Jaden Daniels is going to be good. You do.
He hasn't been as good in the back half of the season as he was in the front half.
Oh, you can come on, Richie. You can watch those games and know that guy's going to be good. We don't know it. I think it's probably more likely than not now that he's going to be the quarterback here for 5 to 10 years. But I don't know that he's not going to have a Mac Jones regression next year. I don't.
I mean,
and when I see performances like yesterday, it's like, oh man, that's if you play like that in week 2, okay, you're learning. To me, he's not a rookie anymore. It's his 14th start.
I don't know, James. Russell Wilson's been in the league for 11 years, and he beat the Baltimore Ravens, who last time I checked were a pretty good team, without scoring an offensive touchdown. Okay, so even quarterbacks 11 years into the league can sometimes just have inefficient games.
He didn't. I get it, but if he'd have thrown 3 picks in that game, people would have still said Russ didn't play very well. They would have.
Bo didn't play well. What I'm saying.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
No, but I never said he did play well. I just said
you went on this 4-minute diatribe about how he's learning from it.
I think he is. I don't think he played well, but I'm not gonna throw up my arms and jump overboard off the side of the cruise ship.
I'm not overboard either,
because I think that he has shown an ability to be resilient and bounce back and fight through some of that while he's all again doing this in his first year. he's kind of getting microwaved a little bit here with this success.
Agreed.
So I just feel so much better about this particular situation with this quarterback and this coach and the way that it's playing out than I have at any of the times previously since Peyton Manning walked out the door. And therefore, while I acknowledge that it was ugly, it was ugly. He and the offense made plays when they needed to be made at the end to pull away from the game. And you got away with an ugly win. We talked about this with the Browns game. Like sometimes you got to win an ugly game. You prefer not to have to do it twice in a row and look totally different, but you got to do it. And I just feel better about this than I have in previous situations.
That's fine. And I know exactly what your answer is going to be when I say this. I just grade everybody by the same criteria. And if they'd have won that game last year with Russ playing like that, people would have been all over him. They would have been all over. Yeah, I would have.
Not you.
I'd have said he played poorly. What's the Sandra Bullock movie where she wears the blindfold? She's like sitting in the canoe or whatever.
Bird Box?
Bird Box. Yes. That's how most people review Bo Nix. They just have a blindfold on, and
that's not true. You love to do this. You love to play
everything. You love to play
the blind mice and the little league mom.
Look how
scorecard.
I love the way
to throw that out there, but it's not true.
When his stats are crappy, they talk about the wins. When he loses, they talk about the stats. It always changes. They move the goalpost. And then they find something to be positive about. And Sean Payton, I mean, just goes in, and it was all on him, and it was his fault. It's like,
isn't that what a head coach is supposed to do?
Did we hear it last year?
No, but it's different. Right. But that's growth.
Not. It's not.
That's growth. Unless you think he's
Sean
just placating.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. He hated Russ, and subconsciously he made it not work. He loves Bo because Bo's his guy, and he will go to bat for him no matter what.
Point here, Sean said that Bo didn't play well, and that there's a lot of throws that he's going to want to have back, and that he knows better, and reads he tried to make that he shouldn't have. He did it, and he's
after falling on the sword and taking one for the team.
That's what a leader does.
He never has before. It's not we never saw.
No, see, I don't disagree. I don't think you're giving Sean enough credit. You may not believe the authenticity of him saying it, but he has said, hey, it starts with us as coaches. We've got to be better. We got to do a better job of preparation and all that. He says there's only a handful of things that Sean Payton says in every single press conference relative to
listen,
look, something about when we were in New Orleans and, the it starts with us thing. So I don't know, James. I listen, you're right. This game on Thursday is going to be a big test, and I hate that it's flexed into the road game. And by the way, we found out because he got asked about it after the game. In my opinion, the way, and maybe people may interpret it differently, this was not something that they felt compelled to do, or we talked about strategery, about giving that had nothing to do with it, about giving yourself a long bye to prepare for the Bengals game and all that, and using the bye week to try to. Sean Payton said, hey, you can either play in prime time or you can be in the 2:00 window for your whole life. And if I'm going to play, I want to play in prime time. He wanted to do this because it's prime time, and he wanted to put his team and himself in that situation. So if you want to call that an ego play or whatever, that's what it is. But that's the way that he's wired.
Well, when we were doing this show the day it went down, and we had three theories as to why, right? There was the strategery part of it,
which I never bought into.
There was the aspect of, hey, trying to just be a good partner. It's the first time it came up.
Right.
You set a bad precedent.
Did it come from Greg Penner?
Right.
Yeah.
You set a bad precedent. If you shoot it down, everybody's going to shoot it down. Now you set the opposite precedent where you're supposed to do what's best for the league, not just what's best for the team. And then the other one was, hey, they don't have a lot of primetime games. They want to show off Bo Nix and Pat Surtain and Nick Bonito.
Literally, I had the press conference on, and I was at home doing things around the house after the game, and I'm listening to it. And it literally made me stop what I was doing and turn over. Like, did I hear that right? Because he literally just flat out said, hey, we're going to play whenever, wherever you want us. But, there's basically two ways you can go about it. You can either play in the big games, play in prime time, or you can be in that 1:00 Central Time window for the rest of your life. And I was like, oh, okay. So
I love that mentality.
And I was going to say,
I love it.
I love it. I love it to a certain degree, because I think I love it for the same reasons that I love a lot of the stuff that Dan Campbell has done early on with the kneecap biting and the this and the that. And we're going to, we're throwing the ball when we're up 3 scores because that's the way we play offense and we do our thing. And it's true to who you are. And I think that mentality is true to who Sean is.
Well, and that instills
even
confidence.
if it's a strategical disadvantage in a lot of ways, like you could argue Dan Campbell going for it on 4th down. A lot of the times that he does, it's like, I don't know if the analytics or just general common sense would tell you to do that, but you're in a rhythm, you're in your flow, you know your team, and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, and it shows that you have confidence in your team, right? Like, hey, we want to be on the big stage. We want to be when the whole country's watching us, and we don't care where the game's at when it's being played. I like the swagger. I do. Now there's a fine line between swagger and arrogance.
Yep.
Arrogance can get you in trouble. Swagger makes you good. We'll see on Thursday where this one went. Well, but I like the attempt at swagger. Put it that way.
Yeah, you can't have swag if you don't, put it out.
Right.
So I'll tell you this, though. I would feel a lot better about heading into a game with the Chargers where Pat Surtain suffers an ankle sprain if he had 5 days to recover and not 2.5.
Yeah.
So, and I knew it. I don't know if you had the same thoughts when it happened, when he had that pick and got back up and that Colts defender went right for his leg like that.
Ugly.
I immediately was like, oh. And then he popped back up. And I was like, oh, okay, because I had an ACL, MCL meniscus tear in my left knee. And so ever since that surgery and recovery and all that, anytime I see that, whether it's basketball players taking a hard, angle or football players getting chopped on the sideline or whatever it is, quarterbacks especially, I get this like pain almost in my leg. And I had it when he was there and I thought, oh, okay, maybe not. And then he went down the next play. And that one has me a little, I know it was described as a minor ankle sprain. And, it's not quite hockey levels, NHL levels of deception, but I'm like, okay, Patrick Mahomes has a minor high ankle sprain and he didn't look pretty good walking off the field there. And quarterback's a little different than defensive back. But James, if they don't have Riley Moss or Pat Surtain, we saw how it happened here at home when just Pat Surtain was missing. If they don't have Riley Moss or Pat Surtain as admirably as Chris Abrams-Drain stepped in and we didn't have to deal with the Levi Wallace experiment again, I'm stressed about their prospects to win the game. If he's not there.
Anthony Richardson couldn't exploit the inexperience opposite of Pat Surtain. Justin Herbert will.
Yeah.
I just think Pat Surtain, I think he's lucky that's what the injury was. Because I had to watch the replay like 3 or 4 times.
Knee.
Like, how did he hurt his ankle? Because he got hit on the left side, and I think it's his right ankle because you can see it roll.
It buckled.
Because that's the one that was planted.
Yeah.
If his left foot had been planted when he got hit like that, then it's a knee.
Yep.
It's your lower leg. That had the chance to be really ugly. A slightly rolled right ankle. That's a fortunate break on that play.
Well, we're all going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that he's good to go because this game against the Colts basically vaulted them into 90+% certainty to make the postseason. And as of now, I believe the first round matchup would be Broncos Steelers.
For those who think the league is rigged, that storyline is pretty perfect.
Well, listen, we watched Deshaun Watson leave Houston and then have his first game back after suspension be lined up conveniently against the Texans.
Yeah.
We've seen the NFL, they may not have a script, but they've got storyboards. They've got things. So that's how it sits as of now. But even though they have a 90+% chance, I don't think this is a team that has a lot of games to give because, again, like you said, the Chargers are a good team and you're going to make the postseason with almost 90% certainty where all the teams are going to be good. So I think that especially if you have a Chiefs team at the end of the year that's got it all locked up with not a lot to play for, I think the Bengals will give you a run for your money anyways because they're not shutting it down.
Well, if you lose on Sunday or lose on Thursday and the Bengals win on Sunday,
suddenly
now that game means something.
Yep.
If either of those things doesn't happen, we'll see what we get out of the Bengals. They are trying to, put up some big numbers this year. I mean, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, I don't know if they're necessarily chasing records, but they're stat padding at that point. They'll probably go.
Jamar's chasing the Triple Crown for sure.
And then it's a matter of what happens in that season finale. Does Andy Reid play his guys? You can make the argument either way. In the past, he's only played him like a half, but they played the following week. This time they'll probably have the bye. Who knows? Because that'll be fascinating. I think they do too, because otherwise you're taking 2 full weeks off.
And they're not a well-oiled machine. They're skinning by the front of their teeth on a lot of these wins. And I think they know that. But I think, again, you're in a rhythm doing that, and why disrupt the rhythm? And, they seem to play well and safe enough that, you're not risking too much terrible injury from most of your star players kind of situation. And on the way out, I do want to make sure, because we haven't really talked about him all that much today. I can't think of a quicker, more somewhat unexpected glow up than what we've seen from Nick Bonito this season. I mean,
my gosh,
this guy is putting, in my opinion, out a legitimate defensive player of the year resume. Now, I don't think he'll have a true shot to win it, even if his statistical, dominance kind of continues on the path that it's on, because he doesn't have the name recognition of like a TJ Watt, Pat Surtain, who's already also kind of up there. We've already had the Pat Surtain coming out party. And I think that Pat Surtain now can get away with more nuanced contributions. Like Jameis Winston had a record-setting day offensively, and Jerry Jeudy had the best revenge game as a wide receiver of all time. But Pat Surtain was still brilliant in it because none of it was really against him. Whereas like Nick Bonito has a louder presence on the field when he's ripping the quarterback down, or he has back-to-back pick fumble sixes, in back-to-back weeks. But I just don't think nationally, if you were to go, and I've actually done this when I go to other states and other things, like I'm checking into a hotel and I just ask the guy behind the counter if he seems like a reasonable sports fan, like, hey, who's like the most popular player on the Broncos? And it was funny when Russ was here, it was Pat Surtain that they were saying, not Russ, which I think is crazy.
Yeah.
But I just don't think Nick Bonito has had that national, block party welcome nationally that would get him recognition for it. But he deserves strong consideration.
He does. And we've talked about it before, of the term great gets thrown around too loosely.
Generational.
He's great. He's a great player. He's a great player at this point. I think he's had too many Spiro Didis games. Yeah. Right? Like it's that 2:00 window.
The bane of my existence.
It's not the national game. It's a regional game. Too many of those.
Spiro
what
Arch.
You know what would help his case?
A primetime game.
4 sacks against Justin Herbert on Thursday night.
Yeah, it would.
You got to have one of those kind of crazy games. Everybody's like, oh my God, he's at, what would that put him to? 15 or whatever, 14 and a half.
Yeah.
Everybody would be like, really? And that would get it. That would get the attention.
People start Googling him.
You're coming out to the set, the Amazon set after the game, and you're talking to the crew.
That was another moment for me as a Broncos fan. Like I said, I had a little moment. I was like, wow, the streak is over of winning seasons and all that. But I had another moment after the Monday night shootout with the Browns, where Nick Bonito is sitting at the desk with Scott Van Pelt.
Yeah.
And the fans are cheering his name, and Scott's kind of introducing him. And you're hearing Nick Bonito talk, which even for those of us who cover the team locally, unless you're going in the locker room, like our guys Mace and Cease every single practice and all that, which I don't, you don't hear Nick Bonito talk a lot.
No.
And so I'm like, I'm like, wow, this is the whole world, just like me, is watching a Broncos pass rusher give an interview on national television. Like, it's just not something we've seen since, frankly, Vaughn left.
Well, he had that Monday night game that got him a lot of attention, right? Being on SportsCenter with SVP helps. He needs something similar on Thursday. Is that fair? No, it's not. But he'd be better off to have 3 sacks on Thursday, none against the Bengals, none against the Chiefs, than 1-1-1.
Yeah,
he needs kind of that game that everybody sees it. He needs his sort of, the coming out party, so to speak. That's what he needs.
No, I agree with you. And listen, I don't care if he wins, any award this year, the production that he's producing and the impact that he's having on the defensive side of the ball. And by the way, he could have had a greater statistical stat line if Anthony Richardson wasn't like trying to tackle a Honda Civic.
Gosh.
The guy is huge. And I mean, we saw JFM almost have him a couple of times and just slip through his fingers. Malcolm Roach, same things. Where it's like, you could tell these guys are like, I don't know what else I can do. I had him dead to rights.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's got a huge arm. He moves around well. He can run, but man, is that guy inaccurate.
Oh, it's going to go down as one of the most bizarre overdraft. It's like a Trey Lance level overdraft. Although the only difference between Trey Lance and Anthony Richardson is that Anthony Richardson has significantly more physical skill set abilities than Trey Lance, but both of them in terms of passers were pure projection, and coaches and GMs who fall in love with like the mold of clay approach of like, look at this big, fast, strong, beastly guy.
That first drive though, you can see why they fell in love.
Oh yeah.
It's like, he can do it all.
Yeah.
And then it just goes away. It just completely goes away.
Yeah. I think they outscored him. They scored 24 straight, I think. And then he had like 4 turnovers in the second half
Yeah.
or something like that. And
It was brutal. It was not a good day for quarterback play. We'll put it that way.
yeah. Well, listen, we again, just like we kind of said after the Browns game, ugly but good. They all count in the win column. I'm not thrilled with it, but I'm not chewing up over either, because at the end of the day, it's hard to win in the NFL, and they got a massive playoff implication win when they needed it, and we're about to have a quick turnaround with LA. So I'm still happy to be playing meaningful football in December, man.
Heck yeah. And I'll be back Thursday. We can preview the game.
That's right. We get a double dose.
It's going to be perfect.
It's going to be great. Well, we appreciate all of you for riding with us. Give us a follow on all of our social media channels at Denver Sportscom, YouTube. So much great content coming from Cecil Lammy, Andrew Mason, all of our Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan crew, all at your fingertips, 24/7, 365. And we'll get back into it with you again tomorrow.